I am thrilled today to welcome Steve Krieg, the Mayor of Lismore. Good afternoon, Steve.
Hi, Gareth, and thanks for having me.
Lismore, 6 months after you were elected, suffered the first in a series of devastating floods. Maybe you can just give us an update on how the recovery process is going.
Yeah, really slowly, to be honest with you. It's a struggle. I read the statistics only this week, that across the Northern Rivers there were 10,000 people made homeless just from that flood. Probably about 6,000 of those people were from Lismore itself. What really cuts deep is when you drive around or walk around those streets over in South Lismore now, which is our biggest population area down in the Lismore CBD, to see so many homes that are still deserted, or people have moved back there but just haven't had the resources or the money to be able to rebuild. And the hardest thing for us in the Northern Rivers, we're only 100 kilometres south of the Queensland border. They've had their reconstruction authority in operation since 2011 when they had their big disaster in the Grantham flood. It's taken the Lismore disaster to really wake our state government up to actually putting things in place as far as disaster recovery and also mitigation. It's heartbreaking to see the people that voted you into office and still living in such terrible conditions, but we keep fighting every day as a council to try and make it right, and we'll continue to fight until everyone's back living at home.
You've mentioned the Reconstruction Authority there. How do you think the relationship with the Northern Rivers Reconstruction Authority currently is, and do you think it can be improved?
It's fractured, that's for sure, between not only residents and business owners and the council and the Reconstruction Authority. One of my big issues with politicians is, post-disaster, everyone's coming up to Lismore, everyone's full of good intention and makes a lot of promises, and you stand behind these people nodding your head and shaking. I became a professional head nodder on the news when the prime ministers and premiers are standing there saying no one will be left behind, and I trusted in what they were saying, and I still do trust what they say. I don't believe our problem is necessarily with the politicians. I believe both state and federal politicians' intentions are good, but I think when you're dealing with disaster recovery, it can get very quickly bound up in bureaucratic red tape. And I think that's where we're at the moment. And I come from a small business background where I'm my own boss. I can make decisions, right, wrong, or otherwise, and I live with them. But I'm either going to be affected in a good way or a bad way, whatever the case may be. I think bureaucrats are risk averse. No one's prepared to actually put their neck on the line and make some tough calls. And that's what I struggle with, and that's my message when I have the opportunity to meet with either state or federal politicians. We need someone with courage and conviction to make some tough calls. They might not be popular because it involves many millions of dollars, or in our case, billions of dollars. But what are the outcomes that we want to achieve? We need some big, bold decisions to be made and kickstart this recovery process. And my goal and my hope and my dream for the future is that Lismore becomes a case study of best practice recovery after disaster.
If you had all the levers of government at hand, potentially to cut bureaucracy out, what would you be doing right now?
Right now, I'd be down in the residential areas door knocking. What does the community want? Do you want to stay where you are? Do you want to put yourself in the position of rebuilding your home, or do you want to move? You need that clarity as to what the population wants before you, as any level of government, you make big decisions. And the feedback post-flood straight immediately was, I would suggest 85 to 90% of the people wanted out. Now we're nearly 2 years on and people have rebuilt. Other people are living down there. It's, the history of your home comes back into play. And I'd say now that the majority of people that live down there on the floodplain want to stay. So how do we make that an effective and safe proposition for them. That brings into all sorts of things as far as flood mitigation and how do we protect those homes as best we can. So, we've got the CSIRO study happening as we speak as far as best case flood mitigation projects down the track. But I would be gearing up a master plan of the city. What does Lismore look like into the future? What are our industries? We're a massive health district. We've got a world-class university. So health, education, we've got industry. We've got a really thriving industrial estate. Let's generate them. Let's get jobs happening, and let's get people back into the region and back into the area.
Has Lismore got the money? I mean, have you received the money? Is there money to be received?
Oh, that's, again, my constant battle with both levels of government above us, is that the reality is they have to fund it. We can come up with the best plans and the best ideas in the world, but Lismore, and the reason I'm the mayor, and it's no secret, Lismore Council was broke before the flood. Lismore can't afford to fund any of this rebuild and recovery and master planning, really. So we rely on the state and federal governments to chip in and help us. We need a lot of help. And that's one of the issues with disaster recovery. And I was down in Sydney last week, and I met with Minister Scully and Minister Dibb and Simon Draper, who's the CEO of the New South Wales Reconstruction Authority, and also Chris Minns as Chief of Staff now. So had some really productive meetings. And when I say I don't think the politicians are really the issue, we've been promised the opportunity to build back better was the term that politicians actually coined. So not only get you back to where you were, but let's make Lismore a far more resilient and manageable city in that regard. But getting the money out of them, it gets stuck in these bureaucratic black holes. We're fighting with probably half a dozen different state agencies, all who have control over different sections. So our road network, for example, $2.3 billion worth of damage to our road network. We're trying to deal with Transport for New South Wales, who have been brilliant, Public Works, who have been absolutely terrible. So all of these different agencies, all with their fingers in one pie and not letting us get on with the job.
You mentioned Transport, Sterling job today, Public Works not so much. Who's the person that's supposed to be coordinating these various state departments?
And that's the $1 million question, to be honest with you, Gareth. We've, as the mayor and as a council, we've actually called for that single entity, that one point of contact. And I look at Cyclone Larry that hit Queensland and Townsville not that long ago, and the Queensland government put Peter Cosgrove in to that role as that single point of contact. Had the opportunity to meet Peter Cosgrove a few times, and he's looked at Lismore and said, couldn't touch it. This is way too big. This is 10 times worse than Townsville. And that really dawns on how big this recovery is when you hear a man of his expertise really grappling with the recovery efforts up here. But yeah, our discussions with Simon Draper, the NSWRA boss last week, centred around still having that one point of contact. We just need someone that has the authority and the guts really to make the decisions on funding. Like, we've got $420 million worth of roadworks designed, scoped and ready to go. And we've received 4% of that funding to get us started. There's no one there to pull that trigger to get the money flowing so that we can get some of that work going.
What then is the role of the Northern Rivers Reconstruction Authority? From a layman's terms, I would have presumed that they were the body which would bring everybody together and oversee delivery of whatever it needs to be. I take it that's not the case.
That was the great hope, and The Northern Rivers Reconstruction Corporation since been folded into the umbrella of the Reconstruction Authority, the state organisation. I've never seen more beautiful PowerPoints in my life, and I was a school teacher for many years before I became a small business owner, and PowerPoint presentations were the thing. I've seen plenty of them in the last 18 months, but none of them that have delivered any tangible work on the ground. And that's been my argument, and our council's argument is that we've seen some amazing policy writing and some great documentation, but give us something that we can take to our residents to say, work has started, we're on the right track, we're on a roll. We've, as a council, have felt that we're doing a lot of things in spite of state and federal government agencies, not with them. And we've felt that they've been doing things to us instead of with us as well. We're being local government, we're closest to our people and our needs and our resources. And I'll give you an example. Our wastewater treatment plant was totally wiped out in the flood. Now, it was protected to 12.5 metres, which is a massive flood. This one, as we know, got to about 14.5, so an extra 2 metres on top of our previous recorded flood. Now, they're $110 million to rebuild our wastewater treatment plant. It's a council-run operation. We've got the expertise here. We know what we need to do to rebuild that particular facility. Whereas Public Works have come in and they've got a generic design. They said, this is what we're going to do. This is how it's going to be, like it or lump it sort of thing. And that to me is not working with a council. It's not saying, let's work on the design, get best practice scenario for your city. Let's make this so that it's going to be an asset that's going to last you many decades. It's basically, this is what we're going to do, like it or lump it. And that's when I say Public Works has been really hard to deal with. That's the sort of scenario that we're dealing with, that we want to be able to have a say in the control of our future and where we want to go and what we want to be able to achieve, because at the end of the day, our staff are going to be running it, our citizens are going to be using it. Let's work together. Happens with the politicians, our local member at state level and federal level, and we meet regularly, we talk daily. We're all on the same page, but the agencies aren't.
How do you think the organisation has dealt with both the flood and then the kind of the protracted journey that you're currently taking to try to get some kind of delivery from whether it be state or federal government?
People watching this probably wouldn't believe the sort of turmoil that we've gone through internally as a council over the last 2 years. Despite dealing with the biggest disaster in Australia's history, I won't say this too loudly, I'm on to my third general manager in 2 years. We've got a whole new executive team dealing with flood recovery and, 5,000 or 6,000 of your residents who are still homeless and struggling, and business. We had a CBD at 93% capacity before the flood. We've been able to, after nearly 2 years, we're back up to 70%. Really exciting that's coming along. But on top of all that, we're also dealing with a complete restructure of an organisation to make it financially sustainable. My number one piece of advice is, regardless of your own personality or, I'm a little bit of an extrovert, but I believe in being bold and strong, and you've got to fight for your community. No one else is going to stand up and do it for you. And especially as a civic leader, as the mayor, when my residents and my business leaders needed me, I would hope that I spoke for them in a strong and bold manner. And my personal philosophy is that the worst that someone can say is no. So I will ask for the world, and if I get it, it's a win. And if we don't, well, we just find another way to ask.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time today, Steve.